Astrology encodes reality within symbolism. But what happens when the map becomes too vast to read, when there is too much information? We seek to know the ocean, but we are often drowning in drops. This naturally makes astrology overwhelming. It is hard to know where to start, how to keep going, and how to make sense of it all. Eventually, any scholar encounters a core problem. We cannot know everything. It is a bittersweet feeling. On one hand, there is always more to learn, more to practice, more to understand. Curiosity is our eternal fire, always there to light our path. On the other, our limitations force us to choose. Instead of potentially studying all there is, we are forced to learn just some things. This exclusion can be agonizing. The fear of missing out, of choosing wrong, is very much real. This fear can then keep us stuck and biased. We fashion ourselves as logical first, emotional second. The truth is the opposite. Emotion is the client, logic is the lawyer that argues the case. Whatever emotional state we are in, we will find a logical way to justify it. If we are angry, our internal lawyer sees a neutral question like "How was your day?" not as a query, but as an interrogation. If we feel lazy, our inner lawyer argues that we work better under pressure anyway, letting us miss out on work, framing avoidance as strategy. And so, we procrastinate even when we shouldn't. In astrology, this lawyer effectively rigs the trial. It hunts for specific aspects in the chart to validate our current emotion, twisting the symbolism until we, the client, are satisfied. If we are in a state of fear, we can view a Pluto aspect as a harbinger of doom. If we are in a state of delusion, we can ignore major red flags. We end up fooling ourselves, not out of ignorance, but out of a need to validate our own bias. How we connect with reality matters just as much as the reality we connect with. A proper mindset can get you out of a hellscape. A wrong mindset can leave you paranoid when everything is going well. Astrology, as a system of symbolism, is naturally very sensitive to perspective. As such, before we learn the first thing about the zodiac, houses, aspects, and timing techniques, it is important we understand how context and meaning shape each other. To understand this, let's look at some paintings. At first glance, this painting is quite serene. The colors are vibrant and warm. The nature is gorgeous. Two people are enjoying each other's company. The woman has a cute lamb resting on her dress. It is a beautiful summer day. However, the details point somewhere else. When looking at the sheep, we see that many of them have wandered. Some are eating the grain in the cornfield. Some of the sheep are hunched over. Are they relaxed, perhaps, like the man and the woman? Maybe. Maybe not. Let's dig further. Actually, some of the sheep look bloated. Bloating and hunching combine into signs of disease. Now, look at the ground. William Hunt, the painter, specifically painted weeds that only grow in damp, unhealthy soil. If these were generic dry grasses, the meaning would be healthy pasture. But because they are bog weeds, the setting changes from a meadow to a death trap. Suddenly, the narrative shifts. The sheep are eating grain that is making them sick. They are not resting, they are collapsing. The sheep may die. The shepherd is not just relaxing, he's neglecting his job, and it leads to disaster. The lush landscape conceals a meaningless slaughter. A final detail confirms this. The shepherd makes an offering to the woman he's courting. In his hand, there is a moth. It has a name. Death's Head Hawk Moth, aptly named by the pattern on their back that looks like a human skull. Quite literally, the shepherd can offer nothing but death. And there we have it. The large scale deceived us. There is no serenity in this image, only foolish negligence. Joy is not the problem here. The problem is that joy is used as an escape from responsibility. Pleasure without structure becomes decadence. Ease without discipline becomes decay. The details were crucial in uncovering the truth of the image. However, not in isolation. In art theory, this is the dynamic between the constituent parts, the details, and the Gestalt, the unified whole. An object in isolation has multiple potential meanings. A sheep laying down can mean many things. It could be sleeping, pregnant, or simply resting. There is no inherent doom in the visual data of the sheep alone. However, when placed in the large-scale context of boggy soil, fields of green corn, bloatedness, and a distracted shepherd, the sheep are forced to be read as dying. The large scale, composed of other details, reshapes the animals into victims of negligence. Take the green apples as another example. On their own, apples represent food, nutrition, harvest. However, placed in the lap of a woman being flirted with by a man neglecting his duty, the apple stops being food. It becomes a biblical reference to the sin of temptation. The apple has not changed physically, but its function has been rewritten by the surrounding scene. We can break this down into two functions, construction and instruction. The details provide the construction, the evidence that makes the scene real. Without the specific corn, the specific moth, and the specific sheep symptoms, this scene is just a generic cartoon. The large scale, however, provides the instruction. It provides the logic that tells us how to read each piece of evidence. It tells us that the sheep are not sleeping, but dying, that the moth is not a gift, but a warning of death. Again, just one sheep in the grain field is not an indicator of doom. Just the moth in the hand is an ill omen for sure, but not enough to confirm anything. Only looking at the hunched sheep does not say anything about the cause. It is the interconnection of the different details that provides us the truth. Furthermore, had we assumed a bias beforehand, we may have chosen to ignore the details outright. Art is a great way to train ourselves to stop doing that, because we can detach ourselves from the art and see the painting for what it is. This ability to objectively read symbols is key for interpreting astrology. In art, we have the frame to limit the context. We know where the painting ends. In life and in astrology, we do not have a frame. We bring our own. If your emotional frame is fear, you will bring fear to a neutral transit. If your frame is arrogance, you will ignore the cracks forming in the soil of your chart. To read a chart objectively, you must first recognize the lawyer in your head. You must identify what case you are trying to prove before you even look at the symbols. Only then can you see them for what they are, rather than what you want them to be. Let's train with another painting. Overall, this scene is also light, playful, and frivolous. There is no livestock here to eat unripe corn and die, so nobody seems to be harmed. The construction here suggests pure Rococo whimsy. The woman, bathed in sunlight, in a beautiful dress, is enjoying herself. She's the epitome of aristocratic leisure. She's wealthy, she's young, and she's carefree. The surrounding forest is lush and overgrown, mirroring the wild youth. If our internal lawyer is looking for a narrative of freedom or joy, it stops here. We see a woman enjoying a swing. Case closed. But we wouldn't be talking about this painting if there was nothing else going on. Let's look at the details, one by one. Who is pushing the swing? In the shadows on the right, an older man pulls the ropes. Who he is exactly is unknown. Most think he is her husband, but that is unconfirmed. He could be her guardian, or even a butler. No matter his exact role, though, his older age and gender place him in a position of authority. This is 18th century France. The patriarchy is not subtle. Supervision of women was both expected and normalized. He's not there to protect her, per se. Rather, he's there to monitor her. The older man, by virtue of age and sex, believes himself to be in control of the situation. He is quite literally pulling the ropes. However, he's not the focal point. He's in the shadows. Nothing else in the painting pays attention to him. Something else is the focus. If we follow the woman's gaze and the trajectory of her kicked-off shoe, we see the young man hidden in the bushes. He's not there by accident. He's there specifically to look up the woman's dress as she swings upward. In 18th century French art, the exposed ankle and foot were highly fetishized, and the lost shoe was a well-known symbol for the loss of virginity. Suddenly, the entire narrative is no longer about whimsy, it is about taboo. There is a statue of a Cupid to the left, a symbol of love, that is obvious. However, the Cupid is holding a finger to his lips. He's commanding silence. He confirms that the romance is secret, illicit, forbidden. Just to the left of the older man, there is a dog, a symbol of loyalty and purity. The dog is barking, showing his teeth. He is aggressive. The symbol of morality is the only one objecting to what is going on. No one in the scene pays the dog any attention. However, ironically and definitely unintentionally, the dog also reveals the hypocrisy of the patriarchy. The dog is barking at the woman, and only at her. The moral failure falls on the woman, not on the men, even though they are equally guilty. The older man, who is supposed to be the guardian, and by extension, preserve the woman's quote-unquote purity, is actually enabling the sexual escapade. Some even claim he's aware of what is going on, but that doesn't matter. In the social context of the time, he's failing at his job regardless, as the woman he's instructed to follow is breaking norms. The woman bears the entire moral risk of the scene, her sexuality surveilled, restricted, and moralized, while the men involved, one facilitating, the other consuming, remain socially unburdened. The painting exposes a system in which men participate in moral transgressions just the same, but without consequence, while women are punished not for desire, but for visibility. Pleasure is permitted only if it is secret, and guilt is assigned only to the woman who dares to enjoy it. Coming back to the garden itself, we must note that it is not just natural, it is overgrown. Trees covered in moss, bushes tall enough to conceal a man, gardening tools laying about. The environment enables the secrecy, the moral crime to happen. The reason the garden is this unkempt is structural negligence. In the 18th century, manicured gardens were powerful symbols of reason, logic, and control, of taming nature to human principles. An overgrown garden, therefore, represents a return to wilderness. This is further confirmation of the sexual dynamics of the painting, as the characters have abandoned social constraints and reverted to carnal instinct. However, there is a more subtle storyline behind this garden. Perhaps the painter did not intend for this storyline to even exist. The fact that the garden is this unkempt is a symbol of the aristocracy's decay. A curated garden, an ordered system, would have made this scenario impossible. The painting indirectly warns us that the aristocracy's pursuit of pleasure at the expense of order will lead to chaos. The French Revolution happened 22 years after this painting, exactly due to the aristocracy's detachment from the reality of the masses, meaning the same characters likely experienced its wrath. No matter which perspective we adopt, Rococo indulgence, illicit romance, class decay, or feminist critique, the conclusion is the same. This painting, beautiful and happy on the surface, is actually ridden with moral failure. Astrologically, this type of analysis is crucial. We often act like the older man. We look at a chart and see the ropes, the transits, the aspects, the techniques. We see the motion, the event itself. We think that because we can calculate the mechanics, we understand the reality. We might see a Jupiter transit, and our internal lawyer argues for abundance and growth. We push the swing. We predict success. But without checking the bushes, without looking for the mitigating factors, the difficult receptions, or the context of actual life, we miss the reality. That abundance might be the abundance of a tumor or the inflation of a debt. We might see the woman, the event, but miss the Cupid, the context requiring silence. Just as the older man's ignorance reframes him into a fool, any ignorance of the full context changes our quote-unquote objective analysis into projection. This painting teaches us that seeing is not the same as understanding. Just seeing the chart and listing all placements is not enough. You can see the swing, you can see the woman, and you can see the ropes, and still completely misunderstand the story because you didn't look deep enough and you didn't make the connections. Either you focused excessively on a small detail without the broader context, or chose to glance merely at the surface. The result is the same. To read a chart is to make connections. It is to ask, what is the detail here that changes the function of the whole? If you do not find it, you are likely just pushing the swing for someone else's narrative. That is the difference between seeing a girl on a swing and a commentary on social taboos. Let's test our logic further and see just how flexible symbols can be. Imagine a scenario. A man gifts a woman a stunning bouquet of flowers. Is this good or bad? Immediately, we'd probably say good. We've been taught that flowers are a great gift. However, can we guarantee that in every context? Are flowers always a great thing? No. Some people are allergic to them, immediately making them an unsuitable gift. It is not an issue with the flowers, but how they fit in. As such, we cannot say whether flowers are always good or always bad. We do not have the luxury of such certainty. Not because we lack imagination, or because we are stupid, but because we lack data. The flowers themselves, no matter how beautiful, are mute. On their own, they mean nothing. They only gain meaning through connection. So, let's add some structure. Scenario 1. The couple has been together for years. The husband passes by a flower shop on his way home, thinks of his wife, and decides to bring her something nice. In this case, the flowers are amazing. They confirm the pattern of a harmonious relationship. They represent genuine kindness and care. Scenario 2. The man only buys flowers after explosive fights or after he cheats, and this has happened multiple times. In this case, the flowers are no longer a symbol of affection. Instead, they are a trap. The man, afraid he has gone too far, wants to pull the woman back into staying so that she thinks it's not all so bad. The flowers now signify abuse. The same bouquet, the same color, the same price, the same wrapping, and yet completely opposite meanings. Their meaning changed not because the flowers did anything wrong, but because of the pattern they are in. Nothing exists in isolation. No action, no object, no symbol carries truth on its own. Meaning is not intrinsic, it is relational. Each event can only be understood within the greater sequence it participates in. Remove the sequence, and the interpretation becomes fantasy. This is where astrology is so often misunderstood and frankly insulted. Take Jupiter in Cancer. It is routinely described as one of the best placements for one of the best planets. Exalted, benefic, protective, nurturing, and yes, it can be, it often is, but treating Jupiter in Cancer as exclusively good flattens the planet into a motivational poster. It assumes Jupiter does not have the power to distort, it assumes Cancer cannot smother, it assumes growth is always healthy. Have you heard of tumors? Assumptions of absolute good or evil are not spiritual, they are naive. Jupiter does not create goodness. What even is goodness? What's good for one person can be bad for another one. Jupiter amplifies. Jupiter provides. Just like the flowers, Jupiter in Cancer does not announce its morality. It takes on meaning only through context. The rest of the chart, the stage of life, and the patterns present in that life. Good and bad are human categories. They describe experience, not archetype. Planets do not care about your comfort, they care about their function. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. If it touches wisdom, wisdom grows. If it touches denial, denial metastasizes. A Jupiter transit can feel like opportunity or recklessness, faith or blind belief, abundance or excess, just as flowers can be love or leverage, kindness or control. The insult is not just conceptual, it's interpretive. When we pre-label planets as good or bad, we stop looking, our minds close and fossilize. We stop asking what role the symbol is actually playing this time. That's the inner lawyer at work again, grabbing the most flattering interpretation and calling the case closed. Astrology is not a set of keywords, it is an entire language with its own grammar. A placement is a word, a transit is a verb, a pattern is a sentence. You do not understand a sentence by admiring one word and ignoring the rest. The meaning could completely change. If you don't ask these questions, you're not interpreting, you're decorating your bias with symbols. You must always keep your mind open. We've seen that not all that glitters is gold. Now, let's look at the opposite. We analyzed the first two paintings from the top down. This time, let's start with the details. And let's just say the details here are not looking good. We see a man laying on the ground. He looks destroyed. Eyes swollen, jaw unhinged, posture crooked. This could easily pass as a corpse on the battlefield. Let's go further. We see another man, drinking but without any enjoyment. The vase vertical to his face, eyes focused like nothing else exists. There is no pleasure here, only urgency, only survival. He's drinking like it's his last chance to do so. Another man stands on his feet, but barely. He looks done. His posture is sagging, his stance unstable, his expression is dead, vacant. He's about to collapse, hanging on by a string. Yet another person, this time looking like they have seen war. That 1,000-yard stare pierces directly at the viewer. What is going on here? The sky looks uncomfortable. The colors are dense, dull. The air feels heavy to even breathe. The diffused yellow points not to warmth, but to stuffiness. It feels like sweltering, miserable heat. All details point to one thing with certainty. Everyone we have seen is distraught, traumatized, pushed to the absolute limit, and kept in survival mode. Even the sky itself is heavy. This does not look like an ordinary day. It looks like the aftermath of a tragedy, perhaps a wave of sickness. And if we stop here, if we never step back, we would be completely convinced. The symbols reconfirm each other. They all echo the same sentiment of misery. How could there be anything good about this scene? Well, let's take a look. As soon as the frame widens, we see the story for what it is. These people are working the fields. It is harvest season. The workers are taking a much-needed break. The man lying on the ground is not a fallen soldier or a victim of a sickness. He's not dead. He's resting in the shade. Exhausted beyond belief, yes, but for a good purpose. This is an honest worker. The tension of his body dissolves once we see that he is surrounded by his people, taking a break. He is safe. The man drinking so urgently, the man with the 1,000-yard stare, the slumper are not facing death. They are simply spent. Suddenly, their bodies are not signs of trauma or tragedy. They are signs of work. The difficulty does not disappear, of course. Their labor is brutal, backbreaking, but they are no longer signs of despair. They all show purpose now. Most importantly, we see not just purpose, but results. Their hard work pays off. There is gold all around them. Fields of tall, dense, and healthy wheat. It dominates the canvas, dwarfing the humans. The far background reveals a prosperous village, peaceful ships on the water, and children playing. The world outside this field is functioning and safe. This painting highlights the nobility, the honesty of labor. It celebrates it. Most importantly, it focuses on how rewarding labor can be. Great achievements often require great work. The exhaustion is not failure, it is progress. The work doesn't crush these people, rather it sustains them. It builds bonds, creates food, allows life to prosper. It creates stability through sheer force of will. The exhaustion we see here is not the end of the story, it is the middle of it. By isolating details, we mistook the scene for tragedy, but when all is revealed, those same details now speak of resilience, of spirit. Again, the difficulty is never denied, it is shown at face value, but it also shows the benefits of overcoming it. Just as the swing warns us against superficial optimism, the harvesters warn us against superficial pessimism. We often act like the prosecutor when analyzing a chart. We see the rough details, the squares, the oppositions and Saturn transits. We see the restriction, the heavy workload, the exhaustion, and the delay. We look at a Saturn return and say, this looks like the man passed out on the ground. This looks like pain. This is bad. But without zooming out to see the wheat, the long-term structure being built, the mastery being earned, the legacy being secured, we miss the reality. We might see the oppressive heat, the pressure of a transit, but miss that this heat is exactly what is required to ripen the grain. Just as the peasant's exhaustion validates the size of the harvest, the difficulty in a chart often validates the magnitude of the achievement. This painting teaches us that struggle is not the same as failure. You can see the sweat, you can see the exhaustion, and you can see the struggle, and still misunderstand the story because you didn't see the abundance it was creating. Difficulty is often just the mechanics of great success. Let's keep going. While the previous painting still had symbols of difficulty, it did not go as extreme as this one. We see blurred silhouettes of people in a dark background. They look like ghosts, watching in the shadows. We see a wound, gashed open, deep, raw, red. Metal jammed right in. The skin isn't just cut, it is being pried open. The body part is forcefully held in place while a blood-stained hand pokes in the hole. Is this torture? Perhaps an interrogation? The hand is soaked in fresh blood. The victim is still alive. There's another bloodied hand. It's a group. One person holds the body open, another digs inside. Someone's hands are viscerally clawed in horror. The fingers are rigid. Whatever is happening, someone finds it unbearable. Finally, a table of instruments, clamps and knives, a tool for every level of pain. The verdict is clear. This is a torture chamber. Watchers, tools, a restrained body, gore. The setting is dark, the action is violent, the result is terror. How could this scene possibly be redeemed? Well, now it's clear. There is no torture here. This is a surgical theater. The bloodied hands do not belong to brutes. They belong to healers. Whoever's leg is gashed open is not a victim, but a patient. This particular patient is suffering from a bone infection. The doctors are performing an operation to remove the rot. This violence serves a purpose, to save the leg, for it would otherwise need to be amputated. The dark silhouettes in the backgrounds are not ghosts, they are students. They are not watching a man be dismantled, rather they are learning how to put one back together. This knowledge will pass down and save countless lives in the future. The man with the scalpel is Dr. Samuel Gross. He's lecturing. The light falls on him. He is the calm center of the storm. The clawed hands are likely the patient's mother. She represents the base instinct to look away from pain, to avoid it at all costs, to cower in fear from it. She represents humanity in general. Dr. Gross, however, represents the future, the new ability of the human race to push past the boundaries of horror and find healing therein. The true meaning of this painting is now about hope. We are conditioned to think of hope as a sunrise, a dove, a smiling face, or a rainbow. This painting argues that true hope is dark, red, and violent. Again, none of the pain is erased. The patient is in pure agony. However, the purpose of this agony is life. Hope is the willingness to cut, to keep going. This image captures the moment humanity learned to open the hood. We stopped praying for the body to heal and started tinkering with the engine. It is brutal and unsanitary. Everyone wears a frock coat, not scrubs. There are no gloves. The hygiene is terrible by modern standards, but that is the evidence of our progress. Every sterile, robotic surgery with anesthesia we have today stands on the shoulders of this bloody afternoon. The comfort we have now exists only because men like Gross were willing to get their hands wet in the messy, terrifying reality of biology. The roughness of the image is the price of admission for the goodness of result. It signifies the triumph of science over the rotting body. Dr. Gross engages in a violent act, all so that the patient can live, so that the patient gets the opportunity to find joy. Astrology, like art, is a mirror of the total human experience. If it only contained the whimsical and the bubbly, things we wanted to hear, it would be a useless fantasy, a map of a world that does not exist. For astrology to be a functional tool, it must be capable of depicting everything. It must have symbols that represent blood, severance, restriction, and rot, because those are non-negotiable components of reality. And yet, even the harshest topics in a chart can be a pathway to growth and attaining new levels. Flowers can be a sign of abuse, just like a knife can be a sign of life. Symbols only gain their meaning through context. This brings us to a logical error called the fallacy of composition. It is best explained by this question: if the car's tires are made out of rubber, is the entire car made out of rubber? The answer is no, of course not. The tires are just one component. There are many different materials and mechanisms that do different things, and yet they are part of the same vehicle. When talking about cars, the answer is obvious. However, when it comes to our lives, we tend to forget this very simple fact. We assume that a happy life consists exclusively of happy moments. We believe that for a life to be good, every single moment of it must be good. This is where the lawyer we discussed earlier returns to the courtroom. If your emotional state is perfectionism, a form of fear, your internal lawyer is not looking for justice. It is looking for a stain, anything to cling on to. It believes that a single downside, a single upset, or a single fall-through constitutes 100% failure for the entire project. With that kind of thinking, it is a failure. Not because the event ruined the life, rather the perspective did. You can be in your favorite restaurant, eating the best meal of your life. The reality is awesome. But if your lawyer is arguing the case for misery, you will find a way. You will not taste the food. Instead, you will sit there dreading the fact that tomorrow you have to eat a regular lunch. You can ruin present moments by obsessing over potential mediocrity in the future. Conversely, you can be in dire waters. You can be in a situation that is objectively terrible, like the patient in the Gross clinic. But if your lawyer is arguing for survival, a single vision of hope is enough to pull you out of that hell. This is why toxic positivity is so harmful. It is a violent form of perfectionism. We often think of positivity as too much happiness. It isn't. It is a rigid, totalitarian, delusional demand that reality must contain zero negatives. It is the belief that if you feel bad, you are failing. It attempts to build the car only out of rubber. By rooting out perfectionism, we stop demanding that the car be made of one material. We accept the steel, the glass, the leather seats, the seat belts, and the dangerous combustion engine as all part of the same mechanism. We confront the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we use all of them to shape the hand we've been given into a life of our own choosing. We drive the car to where we need to go, even if there's traffic. Good things often have downsides. Bad things can put you on a better path. Reality is not black and white. There is nuance in everything, always. That applies to every planet, every sign, every house, and every aspect. This leads us to the final variable, perspective. Events happen, planets move, the universe moves on no matter how you feel. However, the result of those mechanics is not fixed. Think of a chart placement not as fate, but as a machine. It has a function. How that machine operates depends entirely on the operator. The car can take you to where you need to go, but if you don't drive it correctly, you can make it crash into a tree. Handling matters greatly. Sometimes, however, bad things will happen outside our control. Regardless of our skills, we are forced to confront loss and failure from time to time. However, the perspective we take matters greatly. If your perspective is passive, you will see these negative experiences as crushing. You will feel blocked, frustrated, and stalled. You will hit a wall and keep yourself there. If your perspective is active, you recognize that negativity is simply part of life. You accept your reality not as surrender, but as objective vision. You can see the situation and tell yourself, "This is bad. I don't want to be here." Instead of keeping yourself stuck, you start taking action to get out. The event is the same in both cases, a personal setback. However, your reaction determines what happens next. Perspective allows you to change the way you interact with the reality you've been given. It is the steering wheel. This is the difference between toxic positivity and true optimism. It is not a difference in mood, it is a difference in approaching reality. Imagine receiving harsh but valid criticism at work. Toxic positivity would deny at all costs, plug its ears and say, "Just ignore the haters, good vibes only." It refuses to look at the flaw, that you could have made a mistake, that you could have been wrong. This is delusion, and it ensures you never improve, for you reject any discomfort. Doomerism would hear the criticism and say, "I am a failure, it's over, and I should quit." It takes a negative experience and turns it into an identity. This is paranoia, and it will eat you alive over time. Optimism would take the data in. It would say, "This hurts to hear, but they have a point. If I fix this error, I can become better." Optimism is not about ignoring the bad parts. It is acknowledging that even the bad can be used to make some good. Have the courage to look at reality exactly as it is, without flinching, and still see a way forward. When you stop fighting the waves and start learning to sail them, you will be surprised not just by how much you can endure, but by how far you can actually go.